Okay, yes. All right, so I showed you all 4 2-part vessels that I often make, little paper patterns. And so I'll compare, sort of maybe several versions of a bottom to a top and try out different kinds of forms and be like, well, do I like this one that's a little straighter? That could be like a nice design. Do I want something that's a little more bulbous? Could hold a little bit more, if I'm making a pitcher, say here, liquid. And 2-parters are great. And I'm saying this more for the people in the video than those of you who already heard me explain it. But for making, essentially things that are almost too big, or maybe too big at first at least, to throw in singular parts. Also, if you have extreme angles, in something, say you have like those unsupported curves I talked about that like go out like this, you can always throw something with an unsupported curve that stays towards the bat, right? Like close to the bat. Take it off, and then add it to something later on when it's leather hard and firmer, and then it'll hold its shape. So you can really play around with like the idea of multi-part vessels, and it doesn't have to be just 2. You could, if you had a big enough kiln, make infinite. You could have something that was 70 feet tall if you wanted. Might crack and break, I don't know, but it is possible. So I have, I was thinking about going like with this one, but I don't know, I kind of like this form. I'm kind of drawn to this today, and I don't know why. But maybe coming in a little bit here, like, and then, just coming up a little straighter with maybe kind of a, edge on it. So I might adapt this design as I'm working on it. Now, if you want to be a production potters will like draw out ideas like this, and then they try to emulate them as closely as they can, because all of what they do is about control. We don't necessarily have to exercise that level of control. So if you get a little creativity in there, little change, that's totally fine. That can be part of the magic. So I have one piece for my bottom, because I know my bottom's bigger. So this is at 2.5 pounds. I have another one at about like a 1.5 pounds or so for my top. And then of course, eventually I also probably pull a handle, for this. So I could leave a little clay behind for that as well. All right, so let's get started. I'm gonna start with the bottom form. This part's gonna seem real familiar. We've been here many a times, right? Once again, if anybody needs any kind of clarification on the centering process, go through it very quickly. A little water here. Okay, and remember how I talked about when we were talking about like throwing off the hump, that you can center in parts, right? So if I have a little bigger piece of clay, I can come into my top first. And this clay is a little harder. Let's see if this kind of dominates me for a bit. Okay, so I can kind of start working the top and then work my way down. So I just pushed in here, feel of my hand, okay, coming in a little bit lower, push in. And when you start to work bigger pots, sometimes it is a good idea to have clay that's a little bit firmer. I know we've been throwing with really soft clay, but a little firmer clay, if you can learn to control it, does give you better standing strength when the clay is coming up. But it is a bit of a pain here in centering. Like you can even see that I'm struggling with it a little bit, whereas usually I'm like, zip it in, good. Okay, so depending on what you're making, we're always working from a mound of clay, right? But if you're going with something wider, you may want to push down a little bit. And in this case, my bottom is kind of wide. So I'm going to push down a little bit more just for the form that I'm making. But say if I were making a tall, thin bottle or something, I would probably like just start to throw from this. Does that make sense to everybody? So you can start customizing sort of your centered piece of clay for whatever you're making. So I want to push it a little bit wider, so just my base is bigger. I guess if it ends up crooked, I can just do the donut again that I showed you guys. Okay, so for this, I'm going to check out, like, I do want to put a floor on this, so I don't want to go all the way down, or a nice little foot. Yeah, I can just feel that wobbling against my finger. It's a challenging day, I guess, on throwing. Okay, and I'm going to start to come out like I normally would. Look at that, guys. I'm not having the best day on it. Sitting here video recording, being like, here's a mistake. Here's everything not working very well today. So, happens to the best of us. Just try to bring that crookedness up to the top. Okay, and then try to go out for my bottom. Okay, and then make sure I don't get a beginner's hump. Just do a little bit of compression in and out. A little compression on the top. Yeah, there's definitely some wiggly qualities going on here. I'm gonna go ahead and slow down and try to bring that unevenness to the top.
How much thickness are you leaving?
I probably have like, I would say like probably half an inch or so, because I do want to have a little foot there. Remember, slow it down. Yeah, I think I'm starting to get this in control and bring that unevenness to the top. Slow it down a little more. Should have brought way more clay. But I was kind of working with the end of the bag here. Yeah, make a little version, itty bitty. Okay, now what I can do though is I can bring it in a little bit, because I did have it more flared at the outside, and when I color in, that makes the walls a little thicker, which gives me more to pull up too, because we're kind of decreasing that surface area on the outside. Also, sometimes it makes it kind of lumpy. So pull a little more from here. Hold that. I'm actually, before I do that, I'm going to slow down a little bit more. A little more water in there. Remind me not to try to do a demo off of the end of the bag again. Okay. So now that I have that unevenness at the top, remember I can donut it.
With that clay, I kept failing again.
Oh, you're trying to do that? So a little refresher, remember you just kind of go to the side, get the wheel going faster. Get your needle tool ready to go through, and you just meet your finger. Voila. Nice even edge now. Okay. We're coming in a little bit more here. Okay, now I'm going to want to keep a little bit of that silo there, but I'm going to want to shape that from the inside out rather than have a lot of thick clay sitting out here. There we go. So bring more of that in. So I have a little weak spot here, so remember you can always use that rib to kind of get your clay to kind of even out. Press those clay particles down, it gives them a little bit of strength if they're feeling weak. If I am going kind of for a miniature version of that I have down below, I need to probably push out on this a little bit eventually. I'm going to try to bring up one more time, just get that height in there. So sometimes it takes, I know like some master potters are like 3 pulls, that's all you need. I guess I'm not a master potter, I'm a sculptor. So. And I'm gonna use a little bit of this thickness, just pull it up a little bit into there. just ideally. Okay, and then just kind of leave a little bit there, just so I have something to push out here in a second. Just remember I need a shape. Okay, so I'm just gonna push from the inside out a little bit to get a little bit of that flare in there. Gosh, something's crooked in here today. Something wicked this way comes. If I'm making the mini version, I have my flare. Okay, but I want to bring this top part in a little bit, right? Now I don't need to bring it in. If I need to bring it in so much that I'm gonna, because I have so much water down here, that I'm not gonna be able to reach in there, I could just go ahead and remove that right now. Because I don't want it to bottom out. A little bit. My profile. And that's probably good enough for now. Okay, now I do want to leave a little flat surface here. So I compress the edge just because I'm going to be adding, you know, another piece of clay to it, right? So I want to give it a little wall, you know, where that can sit. There, okay. And then go ahead and trim. Nope, shoot. Tell you what, my mojo's off today. At least it is for this pot. I know it's the stiffer clay. Every time I move up in stiffness, always. And of course, you know, depending on what you've, you know, kind of attempted to make here, you can push in, you can push out, you can, you know, make, just like we did with the cups, right? Make curves. So that one's basically done, which means I need to move on to the next one. And remember how I measure? Like for two different pieces to fit together? Do you guys remember what I use? Calipers, yeah. So let me go ahead, give this a little, just boop, boop. There we go. About right there. Okay, just a little measure with the calipers. There we go. All right, and then that means that I can go ahead and get ready to do the next piece. And when I do my bottom, you know, for the next piece, it should be about that wide. Okay. Much closer, right? Okay, so, and it may come out a little bit, it may come in a little bit. We'll play around with it. Now on this next one, this can be a little tricky. You can do it either two ways. You can just throw it like a regular pot with a floor and then cut off, you know, that floor, or you can go all the way to the bat. So no need for a floor. The only problem is sometimes, like when you get thin towards the edges, it gets a little tricky. You know, it tries to kind of flop, slip around on you, be weird. But we're gonna go ahead and give it a go anyway. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead. Oh, so much better than that first one so far. That air bubble was dominating my life. Okay, so I can feel I've touched the bat. Start to come out. Now I accidentally marked it. I swear today's like the day of the comeuppance of like everything I've taught you guys. Like, I'm like, oh, it's a beginner's thing. It's like, here's Fulton Miller struggling with all of them today. Okay, all right. Okay, so I have a little bit of clay that's left down there, but you can see like the bat in the middle. And I can just trim that off, you know, later if there's a little bit stuck to it. Okay, so time to start bringing up. I'm going to check in with my calipers again really quickly. I think I've gone thicker than what they are, which is totally fine. I just want to get back in the like realm of being in the same size. Okay, so I'm going with this kind of something kind of like that. Okay. All right, there we go. Maybe since I can go with a little more length now, since I'm not struggling maybe quite as much. Okay, so coming up. Still unevenness though, whatever reason today. Okay. Got a little bit in speed. And I want to try to make sure that my thickness stays about the same. Is what it would be for this pot. So I don't want to go super thin, super thick in comparison to it. I want to keep it just about right. Maybe one more pull. As I pulled that unevenness that I had up to the top, I'm going to go ahead and do my donut method again. And then check in with my form and check in with my calipers. Okay, so I'm a little wide here. I'm gonna have to kind of try to color the whole thing in. Now, I don't think I'm too wide on the inside though. I think I still have some thickness that can come up. Okay. All right, so calipers again. Closer. Not quite there, but close. Maybe come in a little more if I have a little more thickness in there to come up. Make sure that's compressed. But that now it's time to do a little shaping, right? So if I look down at that, I have like pretty nice shoulder that's sitting in there, and then the rim, right? And then like the bit for the pitcher. So I need to shape this a little bit to get that. So since I wasn't quite as tall on this one as I wanted to be, I might go ahead and just build a little bit more height, like leave a little bit more of this down here. Go more at the halfway point. And then I'm going to do some coloring in to do the shaping for the shoulder. Come on. And I will tell you, once we really get it to coloring in, because you can even like bring this in more. I mean, if you just keep coloring, it turns into like a bottle. I will say as you do that, you will inevitably end up with unevenness up here at the top, like it just kind of shifts it too much, but then you can just cut it off like I've shown you guys before. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. Let's see here. Bring that in a little bit more, maybe curve it out a little bit here, give it more of a shoulder, stretch it a little bit. A little uneven at the top, so I'm going to go ahead and just take off a tiny touch more. my rib. Use that to assist in my shaping because I can kind of push out into that. Nice curve. Helps to strengthen it too. A little bit in here. A little bit down here. Nicer. Okay, and then once again, just check in with the calipers, make sure everything's going to plan. Okay, so if I move this too much out, too much in, I don't think so. I think I just need to probably trim that off. Okay, and I will tell you for this one, I moved the bottom, right, to a different bat. If you go all the way to the bottom for your second piece, just leave it on the bat. You know, like don't move it from its original bat because it's just gonna be real floppy, right? Because it doesn't have that base to it to give it sound structure. Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm pretty close to being kind of done with this one. Once again, if I just want to move that a little bit, shape it. Come in a little bit and then just make sure I'm still good. That I'm not getting too ambitious on. Oh la la. Ooh, I can even keep the wheel moving. Just like slid up right against it, right? So I think we're pretty good. I might need to like trim just a little bit from it, but it won't be much. Okay, so now I'm gonna stop the wheel and I'm gonna show you guys how to do a spout, you know, or kind of like a pitcher, you know, spout. 1 second, let me just clean that up, just 1 second. Here we go. Yep. It's like a little piece of slip that's just kind of hanging out there. There we go. All right, so all I need to do this, I need to get my hands pretty wet. Okay. Pinch here and pull, just like that. So pinch, pull. And then it looks a little sloppy at first, but then I would just clean it up as it gets to leather hard. Does that sound good? Okay, all right, so once this would be leather hard, you know, I would slip, score, and blend, you know, the two parts together. And then the day before, I'd probably pull a handle for it, you know, and then add the handle as well, you know, after I attach it. So does that make sense to everybody?